I forgot to tell you something. I'm sorry. Actually, I changed the bank account where my salary is deposited. On payday, I was filled with anxiety because no money was deposited from my husband's workplace. Then, unexpectedly, my husband has unilaterally changed the deposit account. To begin with, my husband's salary is small, and I am supporting us financially in most aspects. If my husband's salary is gone, I knew it would be a disaster. Despite this, my anger grew at my husband for forgetting to report such important news. I decided to enter marital life right there based on the reason that he had changed the deposit account without telling me. My name is Catherine, a 31-year-old working housewife. I live in an apartment with my husband, Patrick, who is 5 years older than me. We started dating after meeting at a matchmaking party. At that time, I thought Patrick looked very mature and that if I married him, he would protect me. I wasn't right for thinking that, but I think Patrick, who hid the fact that he had debts and married me, was worse. Patrick is the type who can't suppress his desires. If he saw a watch he likes while on a date, he'd buy it, even if it's $1,500. He hardly ever has cash because of monthly credit card payments. But he always said, "I'm a man who rides the wave of the time, so I haven't made cash payments since 10 years ago." So it means that he's been living a life chased by credit card payments for the past 10 years. I want to scold my past self for thinking that he was a mature man when I saw him using the credit card. Since we started our married life, Patrick and I decided to put our salaries into one account. I thought about making it an allowance system, but Patrick only wanted to pay with his credit card, so I decided to give him an allowance of $200 per month. However, when I looked at the actual flow of money, I realized that we couldn't afford to use $200. It's because $700 is withdrawn every month from Patrick's card payments. Apparently, he's doing a monthly fixed payment. Patrick's take-home pay is $1,000, and minus $2,000 was a payment of $700. Life becomes a little harsh considering the future. I was too scared to spend money freely. Despite this, Patrick goes around playing as he pleases and uses his credit card after marrying Patrick. I was shocked to find that his take-home pay was less than that of new employees at my company. I asked him the name of his company before we got married, and he said he worked for a fairly large company, so I believed him. However, Patrick wasn't completely lying. He worked part-time at a restaurant run by a large company. Moreover, he works part-time at a high-end restaurant and is usually in a suit. I was deceived even more because he looked cool in this suit when we met after work. Even such a person has a credit card limit of $3,000, which is wrong. We were able to have our wedding ceremony because my parents gave us the money, so I didn't know that Patrick was so poor. I should have discussed it more or asked him to show me his payslip, but it's too late to regret it now. About half a year after we got married, my mother-in-law came to our house. Patrick basically works on weekends and holidays, so I had to handle it by myself. My in-laws were rich because my father-in-law runs a company. Now my brother-in-law is following his father in the business to take over the company, so Patrick is free to do as he pleases without any criticism. My mother-in-law also spoiled Patrick. Well, I don't know what you're thinking, living in such a cheap apartment, Catherine. Patrick isn't the kind of person who should live in a house like this. I was planning to live in a nice apartment after I got married, but things changed. I swallowed the words, especially because of your son, and forced a smile. This is the apartment I lived in before I got married, and Patrick moved in. Patrick and I looked for a condo, and I left a contract to Patrick. However, Patrick did not proceed with the contract. I had already finished the cancellation procedure for my apartment, but I found out that he hadn't contracted the condo. During our honeymoon, when we came back from the trip, we hurriedly renewed my contract. The main reason Patrick didn't proceed with the contract was due to financial reasons, so there's no reason for my mother-in-law to complain about us living in this apartment. However, it seems my mother-in-law was not satisfied. I can't believe Patrick married such a common woman. My mother-in-law muttered that several times without saying it to anyone, and my anger grew. So I made a sarcastic remark. Well, if Patrick had been earning decent money, we might be living in a nice house by now, don't you think? How dare you speak like that as a wife? It's as if my Patrick is the bad one. I don't know how much you're relying on my Patrick's income. As soon as you're married, you shouldn't interfere with your husband's salary. It's impolite, isn't it? I won't give you a penny of our inheritance. That's not my concern. You think I marry for money, don't you? I can live on my own. I wouldn't get married for money. I married Patrick because I love him. I glared at my mother-in-law, then she glared back at me. I wonder about that. Anyway, don't rely too much on my Patrick. Patrick is a delicate son. I can't bear to think of him being under the thumb of his wife. She left quickly after saying that. It seems she came to see Patrick, not wanting to spend time with me. I was left alone and I pondered. I told my mother-in-law that I married Patrick because I loved him, but now I'm not sure if I still love him. Since we got married, various lies have been exposed, and he's not reliable at all. He's reckless with money, yet he thinks he's capable. I realize that he's just a delusional man. Although he used to appear cool before, now he just looks like an unimpressive guy. Can I still say I love him despite all this? Around the time we had been married for a year, Patrick's salary was no longer being deposited into our joint account. I wondered if he had quit his part-time job and was going somewhere every day without telling me. When Patrick came home at night, I immediately confronted him. "Hey, where have you been?" "Huh, at work? Why hasn't your salary been deposited? Did you really quit your job?" Then Patrick smiled after making a blank face for a moment. I forgot to tell you something. I'm sorry. Actually, I changed the bank account where my salary is deposited." "What? What do you mean?" "I've decided to stop living on credit cards." "What?" "So I realized that cash is better. As long as I use a credit card, the debt doesn't decrease but rather continues to increase. Considering the interest I'm currently paying, I realized that I was wasting money. You can keep paying for the credit card. Once the payment is over, there won't be any interest." The more Patrick spoke, the more my anger grew. Is there any benefit for me in this? Once the payment is over, you won't have to withdraw $700 every month. It's good, right? You should be the one to pay. I can't. Then I had only spent $250 a month, so please handle the rest. Seeing that I was furious, Patrick already left the house. Marrying that man was the biggest mistake. I was ready to start the divorce process right away, but at that time, I didn't have enough knowledge. I filled in my part on the divorce form and said, "Patrick, let's get a divorce," but he refused. "Huh? Catherine, you're funny. You don't know you can't just get a divorce that easily, do you? If we're discussing a divorce, we need to have a conversation. We can't get a divorce unless I agree, and I have no intention of agreeing. It's pointless. Even in a case of a mediated divorce, we need to talk it out. Mediators will try to persuade us not to divorce. It's time-consuming and we can't divorce unless I agree. Or are you going to sue?" Patrick said this with a smile on his face. I can tell Patrick didn't want to let go of his cash cow, which is me. He must be enjoying the fact that he's using his entire salary as his pocket money and being supported by me. It seems like I'm the only one suffering, isn't it? Patrick not only doesn't contribute financially, but he also doesn't do any housework at all. I think it's wrong that I can't even get a divorce easily. Do I have to continue living this married life? While feeling such despair, I lived a life balancing household chores and work. I wonder how much I haven't been spending on myself anymore. Before getting married, I had many hobbies and lived happily. Will I continue to be exploited by Patrick? Just looking at Patrick's carefree, worry-free smiling face gives me the creeps. I tried to keep my distance from him as much as possible because I didn't want to see his face. 6 months after my first divorce proposal, my mother-in-law came again. That day was a weekend, but due to shift scheduling, Patrick was home. I was working from home and was a little busy. I thought I'd greet her briefly and then continue my work if she came just to see Patrick. However, when I showed my face to greet her, my mother-in-law suddenly pointed at me and started yelling. What do you think you're doing to my Patrick? What are you talking about? You're treating him coldly because his earnings are low, aren't you? My son earns $2,500 a month, yet you only about $1,500. Why are you blaming Patrick? When I stared at Patrick, he was sweating and his eyes were darting around. It seems he told various lies when he was grumbling to his mother, just like he lied to me before we got married. He now seems to be deceiving his mother. My mother-in-law kept complaining to me, trying hard to protect Patrick. To begin with, your job isn't a big deal, is it? Despite that, you don't give Patrick any pocket money, and I heard you're living a luxury life alone. A luxury life. When I looked at Patrick again, he put his index finger over his mouth, indicating not to say anything. Seems like he is flustered and teary-eyed, likely due to being in a state of agitation. Although he lied while complaining and didn't seem to expect his mother to storm in. That's right, it's Catherine. With your husband down like that, right, Patrick? That Patrick, he blurted out at me. That's right, the good-for-nothing wife should leave. It didn't seem like his true feelings. As the moment my mother-in-law turned her face towards me, he made an apologetic gesture behind her. So I nodded and said something I didn't mean. Understood. I will leave. A woman like me was too good for Patrick. I'm sorry. Glad you understand. But you don't have to leave. For tutors, Patrick. Yes, I see. I will change. I'll be watching to make sure you don't do anything back to Patrick again. My mother-in-law left with a satisfied look. However, inside my heart, a feeling of sadness, emptiness, and indescribable sense of nihilism overwhelmed me. What was the point of all my sacrifices? Paying off Patrick's debts. The thought brought tears to my eyes. Even Patrick seemed flustered seeing me cry. Catherine, are you okay? Do I look okay? Sorry, really. I think my mom misunderstood because I sort of exaggerated the story. I think she'll be relieved if we can become a good couple from now on. Let's grow together, okay? Sure, I still have work to do. Don't disturb me. I've opened my laptop, and instead of working, I began searching for law firms. I also tried asking online what I should do about my situation. Then various solutions appeared. I blame myself for not taking action until now. If I had known, I might have been able to divorce before being talked down to by my mother-in-law like that. But from now on, I won't be bossed around by Patrick. With that determination, I started preparing for a divorce. Since then, I continued in my life as usual without showing any signs of anger to keep Patrick off guard. While Patrick was away, I had a moving company give me an estimate and choose a new place to live. I had been living in this cheap apartment to save up for a wedding before. Just $150 more. I could live in a nice condo. I don't plan on remarrying for a while, so I'm thinking of getting a pet. I'm sure a pet will be more comforting than being with Patrick. And finally, the long-awaited moving day arrived. I had been gradually sending my belongings to my new house, so the only things I needed the movers for were heavy furniture and appliances. I was frustrated with Patrick, who hadn't even noticed the lack of my belongings. As I was rushing around, Patrick approached me with a bewildered expression and spoke to me. Is something going on? I'm moving. What? I didn't hear about this because I didn't tell you. You don't need to worry. I'm moving out on my own. Wait a minute. I don't understand. You don't need to understand. It doesn't concern you. But I've already terminated the lease on this apartment, so you're going to need to find a new place to live. He seemed to finally understand and hugged me. I'm sorry. This is because I lied, right? I won't lie anymore. Can you forgive me? This isn't about forgiveness. You have the nerve to dump your debt on me and to lie about working at a major company, and even lie to your own mother, making me out to be the bad guy. I can't stand being your wife anymore. I want to have a divorce. He just stood there in a daze, without a word to say. Then he went somewhere and started making a call. I wonder what he thinks will change by making a phone call. Now, what could he possibly want to do? 10 minutes later, his mother arrived. She seemed shocked as she watched the movers carrying out the furniture. Catherine, what's going on? No, I don't want you to know where I live. I don't think it's all your fault. I also think that I should have told you the truth sooner. If you had told me sooner, you might not have had to do worse. I didn't tell you because I didn't think you would side with me. The best you could do was call them a little and try to make us reconcile, right? Then her attitude changed and she snapped back. What? Just because I'm being submissive, you're getting cocky? Don't get carried away. Let's say, what was the purpose of calling me if you're just going to deflect and shift blame? Then there's no need for further discussion. Well then, goodbye. I hung up and blocked her number. After that, I contacted a lawyer and was able to get a divorce smoothly. As soon as I presented evidence that Patrick could not only fail to contribute to the household expenses, but also made me responsible for credit card payments, the divorce was quickly finalized with my husband being found at fault. In consideration of the burden I had shouldered all along, it was decided that there would be no division of assets, and I would receive everything. Patrick should have been able to receive his share of the assets. However, it seems that his father, who had never been involved before, was furious with his son. He ordered that everything be handed over to me as compensation for the trouble caused. Aside from that, my father-in-law also reimbursed me for the amount I had paid on Patrick's behalf. I never thought I'd get it back because the couple's property becomes common property even if I paid for it. I can only appreciate the kindness of my father-in-law. And it seems that my mother-in-law also faced the wrath of my father-in-law. She has always favored and spoiled Patrick. It seems she was told to live with Patrick alone, and they started living together in a rundown apartment like the one I used to live in. Finally, she seemed to understand my stress, and the next time she called me from a public phone, she apologized while crying. I won't forgive her for this, but I want her to taste the pain of living with Patrick for a while. Master Patrick, it seems that he exceeded his card limit, and his mother issued a card ban. His salary is also managed by his mother, and his allowance has been reduced to $70 per month. However, he couldn't suddenly change his lifestyle, and it seems that he borrowed money from consumer finance and fell into even deeper debt. I heard that even his mother is starting to give up on Patrick. I sympathize with the lender. Since moving to a pet-friendly condo, I welcomed a cute dog into my life. The dog listens to what I say while running around energetically when we go for a walk. And it's good exercise for me. It's as if I gained a younger brother, and my life has Beck. I don't feel like explaining everything to her now. It seems that Patrick hasn't told his mother the truth, and I don't feel the need to explain it for him. I'm moving. I'm getting a divorce from your son. So you have to hear the rest from Patrick about his current job, his annual income, his debt. Once you hear everything, I would appreciate an apology. What's going on? Even though it's all your fault, you're blaming Patrick. With some remorse shown, I was actually considering forgiving you. Wait a minute. I ignored her and saw the movers finish loading. The only things left in the room are his belongings. I grabbed my things, opened the door, and said, Patrick, you need to leave by the end of the month. And then I stepped outside. I started the car and saw Patrick and his mother trying to chase after me. There's no way they could catch up to a car on foot. And at the same time, I saw them both stumble and fall. I couldn't help but laugh. After all the misery they've caused me, seeing them try to chase after me, knowing they can't catch up and then fall over, I had to laugh. I feel like I've laughed for the first time in a while. From now on, I'll live for myself. That's what I think. Later, it seems that Patrick did explain everything to his mother as she called to apologize. I'm truly sorry. It's because I didn't listen to your side of the story. Could you please tell me your address? Oh, richer all at once. My parents started visiting my condo to meet the dog, and I made friends through my dog. And every day is more fulfilling than I could have imagined when I was married. For now, I want to continue enjoying these pleasant days.
The conference room felt oppressive as I stared at the spreadsheet on my laptop, the numbers blurring together in a haze of exhaustion and frustration. For a decade, Palmer Tech had been my life, a legacy I poured everything into after Dad passed away. I thought I was preserving his dream, keeping it alive with my sister Sarah. I thought we were in this together. Elena? Sarah's voice cut through the fog of my concentration. I looked up to see her leaning against the doorframe, perfectly polished in her designer suit, her lips curled into a smirk. "We need to talk," she said. I shut my laptop, forcing a smile. "Of course. What's on your mind?" She stepped into the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor like a countdown. "I heard about your meeting with Quantum Industries yesterday," she said, her tone dripping with mock innocence. "Planning to sell the company?" My chest tightened. The meeting was confidential, something even the board hadn't been briefed on yet. "How do you know about that?" Sarah laughed, sharp and cold. "Oh, Elena, do you really think you can make moves like that without me knowing? I have eyes and ears everywhere in this building. But here's the thing, you can't sell the company." I stood, forcing my shaky legs to hold steady. "Actually, as CEO and majority shareholder, I—" "Wrong," she interrupted, pulling a sleek folder from her designer bag. "While you were busy honoring Dad's legacy," she said, her manicured fingers forming air quotes, "I was busy securing my own." She slid the folder across the table. My hands trembled as I opened it, revealing stock certificates and transfer documents. My stomach churned as I realized what they meant. Sarah had been quietly buying out minor shareholders, amassing a controlling interest in the company. "I own 51% of Palmer Tech now," she said, her voice dripping with triumph. "Surprise, big sister." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "Why would you do this, Sarah?" "Why?" Her expression hardened. "Because I'm tired of being in your shadow. Dad's perfect hair gets the CEO title while I'm left with scraps." "Please." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "This isn't about the company's future, Elena. It's about me finally having control." "This isn't what Dad would have wanted," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "He built this company to help people, to make a difference. And now I'll decide how it makes a difference," she snapped. "Oh, and clear out your office by Friday. The board will vote on new leadership, and guess who holds the deciding vote?" She sauntered out, her heels echoing like a victory march. I sat back down, staring at the folder that felt heavier than it had any right to. Sarah thought she won, but Dad had taught me better. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I'd memorized weeks ago. "Mr. Chen, it's Elena. Remember that contingency plan we discussed? It's time to put it into motion." Sarah thought she understood this company, understood me, but she didn't know about Dad's hidden safeguards or the lengths I'd go to protect his legacy. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's the story of how I fought back, and it's far from over. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper and an old USB drive. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter, Maya leaning and close beside me. "My dearest Elena," it began, written in Dad's familiar, steady handwriting. "If you're reading this, then something has happened that threatens the company. I always hoped this day wouldn't come, but hope alone isn't enough. You need to prepare for the worst while striving for the best." I glanced at Maya, who was reading over my shoulder, her brow furrowed in concentration. I turned back to the letter. "When I founded Palmer Tech, I vowed that it would always stand for innovation, integrity, and most importantly, the people who make it thrive. I watched you grow into a leader who embodies these values, but I also seen shadows, discord and ambition that could divide and destroy everything we've built. On this USB drive, you'll find documents detailing the true ownership of Palmer Tech's most valuable patents and intellectual property. While the company trades publicly, its core technology, what truly makes it valuable, is held in a separate trust. This trust activates under specific conditions and names one trustee, you, Elena." I froze, the words sinking in. "This means—" Maya started, her legal instincts already engaged. "Keep reading," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Anyone can buy shares of Palmer Tech, but without control of these patents, they're left with nothing but an empty shell. I structured it this way to safeguard against hostile takeovers. The trust activates if anyone other than you claims majority control of the company's shares. I'm sorry if this creates tension within the family. Nothing would have made me happier than seeing my daughters united, working together. But I've seen how power can corrupt and ambition can blind. Elena, this trust places the future of Palmer Tech in your hands. Use this power wisely. True leadership isn't about domination. It's about guidance, support, and vision. Love, Dad." I leaned back in my chair, stunned. Maya was already pulling her laptop out of her bag. Let me see the USB drive, she said urgently. For the next 2 hours, we pored over the documents. Dad had been meticulous. Every patent, every trade secret was secured in the trust, with airtight legal protections filed across multiple jurisdictions. Elena, Maya said, her voice steady but intense, this changes everything. Sarah may own 51% of the shares. But without these patents, Palmer Tech is nothing more than an empty name and a few office buildings. Before I could respond, a knock at the door made us both jump. It was Mr. Chen, looking calm but resolute. I see you've opened the envelope, he said, glancing at the spread of papers on my desk. You knew about this? I asked, suspicion creeping into my voice. He nodded. Your father named me the executor of the trust. I've been waiting for this moment. When you called about the share transfers, I knew it was time. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Your father insisted you discover it on your own when the stakes were highest. He believed that power unveiled in crisis would be wielded more responsibly than power granted freely. I stood and walked to the window, staring out at the city skyline. Palmer Tech's logo glowed brightly against the night. Sarah's going to be livid, I murmured. She already is, Mr. Chen said. The question is, how will you respond? Before I could answer, the door burst open, and Sarah stormed in, flanked by her legal team. Elena, she snapped. What is this? The board just got wind of some trust claiming ownership of the patents. What did you do? I met her furious gaze, feeling a surprising calm wash over me. This isn't something I did, Sarah. It's something Dad did, to protect the company. Her face reddened with anger. This is just another one of your schemes to keep me out, to make sure I never step out of your shadow. Sarah, this isn't about me or you, it's about Palmer Tech. Dad wanted us to work together. She scoffed, turning to her lawyers. We'll tear this apart. One of them cleared his throat, his face pale. Miss Palmer, it's ironclad. The patents are legally secured in the trusts, and your father ensured they couldn't be contested. Sarah faltered, the weight of the realization hitting her. For a moment, her rage gave way to something deeper, hurt, maybe even regret. Sarah, I said softly, stepping closer, this doesn't have to be a fight. Dad left us both something valuable. He trusted me with the patents, but he trusted you with the shares. Maybe he wanted us to figure this out together. Her expression hardened. Work together. After this, why should I trust you? I hesitated, then said quietly, because we're sisters. And because despite everything, I know you care about this company as much as I do. The room was silent, save for the muffled hum of the city below. Finally, Sarah's shoulders slumped, the fire in her eyes dimming. What are you proposing? Maya stepped forward, holding a draft proposal. If I may, I've outlined a plan that would allow both of you to lead, leveraging your unique strengths while protecting the company's integrity. Sarah glanced at the document, then at me. This doesn't mean I trust you, she said, her voice tinged with lingering resentment. I know, I replied, but maybe it's a start. As Maya outlined the plan, I watched Sarah's expression shift, anger giving way to cautious consideration. This wasn't the end of our challenges, but it felt like the beginning of something new. Dad's legacy wasn't just a company, it was a lesson. A challenge for us to rise above our differences and build something stronger together. 3 months later, I found myself back in the same conference room where everything had started. The sunlight poured through the tall windows, casting a golden glow over the neatly arranged spreadsheets and presentation slides. To my right, Maya was going through our notes one last time, her calm presence a steadying force. Across the table, Sarah sat poised, looking every bit the professional, yet with a softness I hadn't noticed before. Are we ready? She asked, glancing at her watch. The board will be here in 10 minutes. I nodded, a mix of nerves and cautious optimism buzzing in my chest. As ready as we'll ever be. Did you finalize the projections for the new division? She slid a folder across the table with a smirk that carried the faintest echo of our old rivalry. You know I'm always prepared. I chuckled, surprised by how much lighter the banter felt. The last few months had been grueling. Late nights, intense debates, and more than a few moments when we questioned whether we could ever find common ground. But somehow, through Maya's guidance and sheer determination, we'd restructured Palmer Tech into something that reflected both our visions. Maya's plan was genius in its simplicity. Divide the company into complementary divisions. I would remain CEO, overseeing research and development to honor Dad's technological legacy, while Sarah took the reins as president of operations and strategy, driving the business expansion she'd always dreamed of. The board's here, Maya announced, gathering her papers. Time to shine. As the board members filed in, I caught Sarah's eye. She gave me a small nod. Our unspoken promise that we had each other's backs. It had taken countless therapy sessions, brutally honest conversations, and more than a few tears to get to this point. But for the first time, we were more than just reluctant collaborators. We were sisters again. Good morning, everyone. I began, rising to address the room. Today, Sarah and I are proud to present a new direction for Palmer Tech. A vision that marries innovation with expansion, blending our strengths to build a stronger future. The presentation flowed seamlessly, Sarah and I alternating sections like a well-rehearsed team. We outlined our plans for international growth, groundbreaking research, and a governance structure that reflected transparency and collaboration. The board members leaned forward, engaged, their skepticism melting away with each slide. "This is extraordinary," said James Anderson, the board's senior member. "When the shared dispute erupted 3 months ago, I feared the worst. But what you've accomplished here is remarkable. It's exactly what Thomas Palmer would have wanted." Sarah's grip on her pen tightened at the mention of Dad, but her voice remained steady. "We've come to understand more about what Dad truly wanted, not just for the company, but for us." As the meeting wrapped up and the board members departed with enthusiastic congratulations, Sarah and I lingered. The silence between us felt natural now, not charged with tension like before. "Remember when we used to play office in Dad's study?" Sarah asked suddenly, gazing out the window. "You were always the boss." I laughed softly. "And you always argued about it. You were right, though. It wasn't fair." She turned to me, her expression thoughtful. "Neither was what I did. Buying up shares behind your back, trying to take over. I was so focused on what I thought I deserved that I couldn't see what you were trying to protect." "And what was that?" "Dad's legacy. You weren't fighting me, you were fighting for him. I just couldn't see it then." I joined her at the window, where the Palmer Tech logo gleamed on the building across the street. "I found an old photo album in Dad's study last week," I said, pulling up a picture on my phone. It showed two little girls in oversized business suits, barely containing their giggles as they sat at Dad's desk. Sarah smiled, her eyes softening. "I remember that day. Dad let us sit in on a board meeting for 5 whole minutes before he kicked us out. We thought we were so grown up." "Well," I said, "I think we finally are." The door opened and Maya popped her head in. "Elena, your R&D team is waiting." "Sarah, the strategic planning committee is in conference room B." Dewey called, but before we parted, Sarah touched my arm. "Elena, thank you for giving me a second chance." I squeezed her hand. That's what big sisters are for. Later that evening, I found a note on my desk in Sarah's handwriting. "Dinner tonight? Dad's favorite Italian place. My treat. Let's celebrate our first board meeting as partners." I smiled, replying, "Only if we split the bill." "Partners, remember?" Her response came quickly. "Deal. But I'm ordering the expensive wine. Sharing, right?" As I packed up, I glanced at the photo of Dad on my wall. "You knew, didn't you?" I whispered. "You knew we'd figure it out, just not without a fight." That evening, over wine and laughter, Sarah and I talked about everything. Childhood memories, our plans for the company, and dreams for the future. Somewhere between the pasta and dessert, I realized this was the real legacy Dad had left us. The chance to rediscover each other and build something stronger together. "To Dad," Sarah said, raising her glass. "For being smarter than the both of us." "And to us," I added, clinking my glass against hers. "For finally figuring it out." Hi, I'm Harper. Life seemed perfect until someone decided to light a match near the gasoline that was my world. 3 months ago, I was busy preparing for my kids' birthday party. Yes, my kids, because that's exactly what Tommy and Sarah are to me, no matter what my dear sister-in-law Sharon thinks. "Mom, can we have chocolate and vanilla cake?" Sarah tugged at my apron as I hung streamers across the living room. Her big brown eyes could melt even the hardest heart. "Already ordered, Princess," I assured her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Your brother specifically requested that chocolate volcano cake you two loved last year." Did someone say volcano cake? Tommy's head popped around the corner with impeccable timing. For a 12-year-old, he had a sixth sense for dessert-related conversations. Back to your homework, young man, I said with mock sternness. The party's tomorrow, and I don't want any unfinished assignments hanging over our heads. But, Mom. No buts. I promise it'll be worth the wait. Just then, Mark, my husband, walked in and wrapped his arms around me from behind. Need any help, honey? James just called. He's bringing those extra tables we needed. Your brother is a lifesaver, I said, muttering under my breath, unlike some people we know. Mark chuckled, catching my tone. Sharon RSVP'd, didn't she? Oh, yes. With her usual passive-aggressive message about how she's so glad to be included in her niece and nephew's special day. I rolled my eyes, recalling her text. Linda, my best friend since college, burst through the front door just then, her arms loaded with party supplies. The party fairy has arrived, she declared dramatically. And guess what? I bring gossip. You'll never guess who I just saw at the mall having a full-on meltdown over a return dress. Please tell me it wasn't Sharon, I groaned. Oh, it was, Linda replied with a grin, complete with demands to speak to the manager. I shouldn't have enjoyed the story as much as I did, but after 5 years of Sharon's snide comments about me playing house with her brother's family, I figured I'd earned a little schadenfreude. The truth was, I met Mark when Tommy and Sarah were 3 and 4. Their biological mother had walked out of their lives without a backward glance. I fell in love with all 3 of them, and 2 years later, we made it official, with both a marriage and an adoption. But Sharon never forgave me for replacing their real mom, as she liked to call it. Never mind that their real mom sent birthday cards 6 months late, if she remembered at all. Earth to Harper, Linda said, waving a hand in front of my face. Where should I put these streamers? Sorry, just thinking about tomorrow, I said, shaking myself out of my thoughts. The kids wanted the game corner over there, and the gift table by the window. It's going to be perfect, Mark said, squeezing my shoulder. The kids are excited. James is handling the entertainment, and Linda's got the decorations covered. And Sharon? Linda raised an eyebrow. Sharon will behave, Mark said firmly, or she'll leave early. These are my kids' birthdays, and I won't let anyone ruin it. If only we'd known what she was planning. But storms often strike when the skies seem clearest. The party was perfect, for a while. Tommy and Sarah were surrounded by friends. The volcano cake erupted right on cue, and even Sharon seemed to be on her best behavior. I should have known it wouldn't last. Present time, Sarah announced, bouncing in her seat. Tommy tried to play it cool, but I saw the excitement in his eyes. They always opened gifts together, taking turns. This one's from Aunt Sharon, Tommy read aloud, reaching for a large envelope. Sharon stepped forward, that dreaded smile spreading across her face. Actually, she said, her voice dripping with false sincerity, I have something special to share first. Children, I think you're old enough to know the truth about your real mother. The room went silent. My heart stopped. She didn't abandon you like I told you, Sharon continued. I've been in touch with her, and she misses you both so much. She even has pictures to prove it. She pulled out a stack of photos, and I watched in horror as Tommy and Sarah's faces shifted from confusion to shock. Sarah's lip trembled. That's enough, Mark's voice boomed, cutting through the silence. Sharon outside. Now. They deserve to know, Sharon shot back. Harper's been playing pretend mom long enough. Linda quickly ushered the other kids into another room, while James stepped between Sharon and my children. But Mom, Tommy's voice cracked, tears pooling in his eyes. You said she left us. She did, sweetheart, I said gently, my own voice shaking. Your aunt isn't. I have proof. Sharon interrupted, waving a stack of papers, letters, and photos triumphantly. She writes to me about them all the time. Mark's hand shot out, gripping Sharon's arm as he practically dragged her toward the door. How dare you, at their birthday party? Get out! They're not your children. Sharon shrieked, her face red with fury as Mark pushed her outside. They'll never be yours. Sarah burst into tears and bolted upstairs. Tommy sat frozen, staring at the scattered photos on the floor. Pictures I'd never seen before of a woman who had walked out of their lives 8 years ago. Tommy, I reached for him, but he flinched away. Is it true? He asked, his voice trembling. Have you been lying? No, baby, I whispered, fighting back tears. I've never lied to you. Your birth mother did leave, but that doesn't change. I want to be alone. He stood abruptly and followed his sister upstairs, leaving me alone in the wreckage, a room filled with half-opened presents, torn streamers, and the hushed whispers of concerned parents. Linda wrapped her arms around me as James helped Mark deal with Sharon outside. Through the window, I could hear the heated exchange. She's been writing to them this whole time. Mark's voice cracked with disbelief. They deserve to know. Sharon shouted back. You can't keep playing happy family forever. The party dissolved after that. Parents hurried their children out with awkward apologies, leaving me in a house that felt unbearably empty despite the lingering decorations. Upstairs, the muffled sound of my children crying cut through me like a knife. Something inside me hardened. Sharon hadn't just ruined a party, she tried to destroy my family. And for that, there would be consequences. 2 weeks later, I sat at Linda's kitchen table, surrounded by a mountain of evidence. Printouts of Sharon's social media history, email threads, and screenshots cluttered the space. Look at this, Linda said, pointing to a post from 3 years ago. She's been tagging their birth mother in comments since before your adoption was finalized. My hands shook as I sifted through the messages. 8 years of calculated manipulation unraveled before me. James walked in carrying a thick folder. You need to see this, he said grimly. I found Sharon's old laptop while cleaning Mom's attic. He spread out emails showing Sharon's desperate attempts to locate the kid's birth mother. She hired a private investigator 2 months before your wedding, James continued. She's been planning this for years. My phone buzzed. Another message from Sharon in the family group chat. I only told them the truth. Stop keeping them from their mother. Don't respond, Linda warned, but James was already dialing. Sharon enough, he snapped. You want the truth. Here it is. You've been jealous of Harper since day one. Remember when you tried to set Mark up with your coworker at Christmas? That was different. Sharon protested. I was just trying to. To what? Break up a happy family. James interrupted. Those kids were finally healing. I tuned out their argument, my attention drawn to an email thread on the laptop. Sharon had found the kid's birth mother 6 months ago. The response made my blood boil. Please stop contacting me. I signed away my rights for a reason. I don't want to be involved. But Sharon hadn't stopped. She kept pushing. The kids were at their first therapy session with Dr. Phillips after Tommy refused to come down for dinner 3 days in a row. Mark called during the session. Harper, his voice was heavy. Tommy talked today. He asked about the adoption papers. Wants to see them. Of course, I said, my throat tight. Is Sarah okay? She asked if she has to call you Mom anymore. Mark said, his voice cracking. And Sharon's outside the therapist's office. She says she has more evidence to share. I grabbed my keys, but James stopped me. I got this. Linda, show her what we found about the restraining order. What restraining order? I asked, startled. Linda pulled up another document from her ex-husband. Apparently, Sharon's done this before, tried to turn his kids against their stepmom. It's all part of a pattern. Everything clicked into place. This wasn't just about me or my kids. This was Sharon's crusade against any woman who dared to love children that weren't biologically theirs. My phone chimed again. Another message from Sharon. You'll never be their real mother. I'll make sure they know everything. I stared at the growing pile of evidence, feeling a cold smile spread across my face. No, Sharon. They're going to know everything about you. Sunday dinner at Mark's parents' house was tense. Sharon arrived with her usual smug confidence, which faltered when she saw the laptop and projector set up in the living room. What's this? She asked, her voice uncertain. Sit down, Sharon, Mark's father said, his tone leaving no room for argument. We've seen everything, James said, clicking through the presentation. Emails, social media posts, the restraining order, her persistent messages to the kid's birth mother, 8 years of manipulation laid bare. Those are private. Sharon lunged for the laptop. Like my children's therapy sessions were private before you followed them there? I said, my voice steady and cold. I was protecting them, I said firmly. Mark's mother held up a printed email, the one from Julie, the kid's birth mother. From what? A woman who repeatedly told you to stop contacting her. Sharon's face twisted with defiance. She changed her mind. She wants. No, I don't. A new voice came from the doorway, and the entire room turned. James had done what Sharon never could. He'd actually contacted Julie. She stood there, looking uncomfortable but determined. I chose to leave. I signed away my rights. These children have a mother. Her name is Harper. Sharon went pale. But you said. I never said anything to you, Julie interrupted, her tone sharp. You invented this entire narrative. Julie turned to me, her expression softening. I'm so sorry for all of this. You've given them everything I couldn't. From the staircase, Tommy and Sarah slowly came into view. Their eyes were wide with curiosity and uncertainty. Is it true? Tommy asked Julie, his voice small. You really didn't want to come back. No, I didn't, Julie said gently. But you have a mom who loves you more than anything. Don't let anyone tell you differently. Sarah walked straight to me, wrapping her arms tightly around my waist. We know who our mom is, she whispered. Sharon started to cry. I was trying to help. The children needed. The only thing these children needed was for you to leave them alone, Mark's father said, his voice stern. Until you get professional help, you're not welcome at family events. But they're my family too. Sharon wailed. Not anymore, Mark said firmly. Get help, Sharon. Real help. 3 months later, we celebrated the kids' half-birthday, a new tradition born out of the chaos. Tommy hung his latest art project on the fridge, a colorful family portrait, while Sarah worked on her speech for Adoption Awareness Day at school. Proud to tell her story, Mark said, watching her from the kitchen. Sharon's social circle had crumbled after the truth came out. Her church group, the school board she tried to influence, even her workplace, none of them wanted anything to do with someone who had traumatized children for her own agenda. Mom, Sarah called. Can you help me practice my speech? Coming, sweetheart, I replied. She beamed as I entered the room. It's about how family is about love, not blood. Tommy helped me write it. I pulled them both into a hug, feeling the strength of our bond. It was stronger now, tested and tempered by everything we'd endured. Later that evening, Linda and James came over for our weekly dinner with Mark's parents. Julie had sent a thoughtful card, affirming the kids' choice to embrace their adoptive family fully. As for Sharon, last we heard, she'd moved to another state. Sometimes healing means letting go, not just for us, but for her too. But this story isn't about Sharon anymore. It's about a family that chose each other, weathered the storm, and came out stronger. Hi everyone, I'm Anna, a 28-year-old marketing executive living in Chicago. What I'm about to share still gives me chills. Living just 15 minutes away from my sister Emma's house meant we saw each other often, maybe too often to ignore the warning signs. We'd always been close, despite the 4-year age gap, but things changed after she married Marcus. You look exhausted, Em. Everything okay? I asked during one of our weekly coffee meetups. Just working, the usual stuff with the fertility treatments. Has Marcus been supportive? She hesitated, her eyes dropping. He's trying. He really wants a baby. Her tone said more than her words. I'd seen Marcus, Mr. Successful real estate developer, treat her differently when he thought no one was looking, like that dinner last month at their house. Emma, where's my blue tie? The canali one. I think it's still at the dry cleaners. You think? I need it for tomorrow's meeting. How hard is it to handle simple tasks? I watched my sister shrink into herself and my blood boiled. But I'd learned the hard way that speaking up only made things worse. Mom's worried about you, I told her over lunch a week later. She says you barely visit anymore. Marcus likes me to be home when he gets back from work, she said softly, pushing a salad leaf around her plate. And we're trying to save money for the treatments. Save money? You inherited $500,000 from Grandma last year. Her silence was deafening. Even my best friend Diane, a private investigator, noticed. One night, as we sipped wine at my apartment, she brought it up. Anna, I don't want to overstep, but something's off with Marcus. The way he tracks Emma's spending and whereabouts. I know, I sighed. Did you see how he reacted when she wanted to go to Miami for Jane's bachelor party? Yeah. Suddenly their joint account had suspicious activity, and her cards were frozen. Convenient timing. The worst moment came at our parents' house last Sunday. Emma mentioned wanting to take a break from fertility treatments. We're not stopping, Marcus said firmly. My brother just had his second kid. My parents expect a grandchild. But the doctor suggested waiting, Emma replied. The doctor doesn't understand how important this is. We're continuing. End of discussion. Mom tried changing the subject, but Dad's face said it all. He was seeing what I'd been seeing. Later that night, Emma texted me, sorry about dinner. Marcus is under a lot of pressure at work. Always excuses, always justifications. Meanwhile, Marcus was buying designer watches while Emma used expired grocery coupons. She's different, Mom said during our weekly shopping trip. She doesn't laugh like she used to. I know, Mom, I know. What they didn't know was that I'd started keeping a diary of every incident, every red flag. Not because I was nosy, but because something in my gut told me I'd need it someday. And I was right. You're absolutely sure? I asked, my voice trembling. Yes, Miss Parker, you're 8 weeks pregnant. The doctor's words echoed in my head. James, my James, had been gone just 3 weeks. That awful accident had taken him, and now, this. I needed my sister more than ever. Driving to Emma's house that evening, my hands trembled on the steering wheel. As I parked outside their 3-story brownstone, I heard shouting through a partially open window. Another negative test. Are you even trying anymore? Marcus, please. The doctor said stress makes it harder. Don't give me that. My sister-in-law got pregnant on her first try. I hesitated, then rang the doorbell. The shouting stopped abruptly. Emma opened the door, her eyes red and puffy. Anna, I didn't expect you. Bad timing. I can come back. No, come in. Marcus appeared behind her, his jaw clenched. We were just discussing private matters, he said curtly. I followed them into the living room, my news burning in my throat. Maybe I should have waited, but I needed my sister. I actually have something to tell you both, I said, my voice shaking. I'm pregnant. The room fell deadly silent. Emma's face lit up for a brief moment before her eyes darted nervously to Marcus. His face turned an ugly shade of red. Pregnant by who? He sneered. That deadbeat boyfriend who couldn't even drive properly. Don't you dare talk about James like that. Or what? You'll raise another failure like him? Perfect. The unemployed single mother and her bastard. Marcus. Emma gasped, horrified. Tears blurred my vision as I turned to leave, but Marcus wasn't done. He followed me into the hallway, still ranting. You think you can just waltz in here flaunting your pregnancy while Emma? This isn't about Emma. This is about you and your ego. I was halfway up the stairs when I felt his hand on my shoulder. The push was deliberate. No one could call it an accident. Emma's horrified face was the last thing I saw before everything went black. I woke to the steady beeping of machines and my mother's tear-streaked face. The baby? I croaked. It's fine, sweetheart. You both got lucky. The detective came later. Miss Parker, your sister's statement suggests it was an accident. It wasn't. He pushed me. Mr. Reynolds claims you were distraught about your ex-boyfriend's death and tripped. That's not what happened. But Marcus had friends in high places. The hospital report mysteriously emphasized my emotionally fragile state. His lawyer spun a narrative, and even the detective began hinting I might be confused. Emma visited once, trembling like a leaf. Anna, I'm so sorry. Maybe you were upset and lost your balance. You saw what happened, Emma. You were there. Marcus says, if I don't support his version, he'll contest my inheritance. I can't. I'm sorry. I watched her leave, choosing her abuser over the truth. That was when I knew no one was going to help me. I needed to make him pay on my own. We need to find something concrete, Diane said, spreading documents across my coffee table. His first wife moved to Seattle, changed her name, she continued. Took me 3 days to track her down. Did you talk to her? Better. I got copies of her hospital records and police reports. 3 accidental falls in 2 years of marriage. Sound familiar? I rubbed my still healing ribs. He's got the police in his pocket here. We need more. My phone buzzed. It was Emma. Anna, he's getting worse. Yesterday he threw a glass at the wall because I bought the wrong wine. Document everything, I texted back. Times, dates, photos. Send them to my private email, not your regular one. Diane's laptop pinged. Anna, look at this. Marcus's company, Reynolds' development was taking loans from shady lenders with astronomical interest rates. Wait, I scrolled through Emma's bank statements, which she'd secretly forwarded to me. These withdrawals match the dates of his loan payments. He's using her inheritance. That's not all, Diane said, pulling up surveillance photos. See this woman? Catherine Mills. She's the wife of his business partner. Recognition dawned. Mills? The guy funding their new downtown project? Yep. Guess who's about to pull out? Turns out Mrs. Mills isn't so discreet with her phone messages. My phone buzzed again. Emma sobbing. The bank called about a second mortgage. I never signed anything. Take pictures of every document you find, I told her. Everything. Diane whistled low, staring at her screen. Those loans? They're coming due. All of them. And his new projects aren't selling. The market's turning. Later that week, Emma sent me a video she'd secretly recorded. You stupid. Marcus's voice crackled through the phone. You told him about the mortgage, didn't you? No, I swear, Marcus, please, put down the sound of shattering glass made me flinch. Send that to your private cloud account, I texted back. And Emma, pack an emergency bag. Just in case. Diane had more news. His company's hemorrhaging money. 3 contractors filed liens this morning. And those loan sharks? They're getting impatient. I watched through Emma's kitchen window during a family dinner. Marcus's designer suit couldn't hide the sweat on his forehead as he took another angry phone call. I'll have your money. The Mills project is a sure thing. What do you mean he's backing out? Emma sent another message the next day. He's drinking again. Found receipts from the Golden Leaf Hotel in his jacket. Who's Catherine? For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Send me those receipts, I replied. And then call. Mom, tell her, I said urgently. She needs to stay with you for a few days. The pieces were finally falling into place. Marcus Reynolds was about to learn the hard way that karma doesn't rely on the justice system to work its magic. Mr. Mills, I have some photos you might want to see. The anonymous email landed perfectly. Within hours, the Mills project was officially dead. He's ruined me. Marcus's enraged screams echoed through the house. 5 years of work, gone. Someone's trying to destroy me. Emma called me from Mom's house where she'd been staying. Anna, he's losing it. The bank called. They're foreclosing on the house. Good. Did you give those forged mortgage documents to the FBI? This morning, she confirmed. They seemed very interested in his other properties too. The news broke soon after. Local developer Marcus Reynolds under federal investigation for fraud. His investors scattered like rats fleeing a sinking ship. You think you can leave me? Marcus's chilling voicemail to Emma echoed in the courtroom. After everything I've done for you, I'll destroy you. Your Honor, Emma's lawyer began, presenting the evidence we'd painstakingly gathered. This voicemail, along with these documents, illustrates systematic financial abuse and fraud. The judge's expression grew darker with each page. Then, a familiar face appeared on the local news. It was Sarah, Marcus's ex-wife from Seattle. When I saw the story about his arrest, I knew I had to come forward, she told reporters. What he did to me, he can't keep getting away with it. My phone buzzed. It was Diane. Anna, you won't believe this. Those loan sharks Marcus borrowed from, they're under FBI investigation too. They're rolling over on everyone, including him. I watched the news from my hospital bed, my newborn daughter sleeping peacefully in my arms. The screen showed Marcus being led out of his office in handcuffs. Multiple counts of fraud, domestic violence, assault. The charges kept piling up. How's my niece? Emma asked as she visited us in the hospital, her smile brighter than I'd seen in years. Perfect, I said. How's the new job? Better than perfect, she replied. The domestic violence shelter needed a coordinator, and with my experience, well, at least something good came from all of this. A week later, my marketing firm got a call from Marcus's old business partners. We'd like to discuss a rebranding, they said. Sorry, I told them. We don't work with companies that turn a blind eye to abuse. But I hear Johnson Associates is hiring. They're big on corporate responsibility. The final blow came during Marcus's sentencing. Mr. Reynolds, the judge said firmly, your pattern of financial and physical abuse reflects a profound moral corruption. 20 years. No possibility of parole for 10. Emma and I watched as he was led away, his once impeccable designer suit replaced by the dull orange of a prison uniform. You know, Emma said as she bounced my daughter on her knee in my living room, I used to think I needed him, that I was nothing without him, and now you're helping other women escape men like him, I finished, smiling. Karma's funny that way, she said, smiling back. My daughter gurgled happily, grabbing Emma's finger. Outside, the city skyline sparkled. The same buildings Marcus once dreamed of ruling over, now owned by others while he sat in his cell. I got another letter from him last week. Emma mentioned it too, asking for forgiveness, saying he's changed. I burned mine without reading it. Some people don't deserve second chances. I hugged my sister tightly, my daughter nestled between us. Marcus tried to take years from Emma, tried to take my baby. But in the end, he lost everything, while we grew stronger. That's the thing about karma. It might take time, but it never forgets. What would you do if you discovered your sibling's spouse was abusive, but they begged you to stay quiet? Would you respect their wishes or take action, no matter the cost? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about overcoming toxic relationships and finding justice. Together, we can help others who might need to hear these messages. Hi, everyone. My name's Pamela, and I'm a real estate agent here in Boston. Today, I'm going to share the story of how my mother-in-law, Patricia, went from controlling to downright dangerous. Buckle up, this one's a ride. I met Mike 3 years ago at a luxury home showing. He was charming, successful, and we hit it off right away. A year later, we were married. That's when Patricia entered my life. The first time I met her, she looked me up and down in her perfectly tailored Channel suit, her expression more appraising than welcoming. Darling, she said with a condescending tilt of her head, real estate. Isn't that a bit ambitious for someone from your background? The comment came during our engagement dinner, and I can still hear the disdain in her voice. At first, Mike's sister Emma seemed like an ally. Over coffee, she'd roll her eyes and tell me, don't take it personally. Mom's like this with everyone. But everything changed when I got pregnant. Mother thinks you should consider a different doctor, Emma mentioned one day during lunch. She knows a wonderful OBGYN who delivered all of us. Unhappy with Dr. Roberts, I replied. That didn't stop Patricia. She began showing up at my appointments uninvited, announcing to the receptionist, as the grandmother, I have a right to be involved. The receptionist would glance at me apologetically, but Patricia was relentless. Then came Tom's wedding. Tom, Mike's younger brother, was marrying Sophia. The date? 2 weeks before my due date. You absolutely must attend. Patricia insisted over Sunday dinner. It would be terribly embarrassing for Mike if you weren't there. I've already arranged your outfit. My doctor advised against traveling this late in the pregnancy. I protested. Nonsense, she scoffed. I carried all 3 of my children to term and never once let it slow me down. Besides, I'll be there to help if anything happens. And then she dropped the bombshell. Of course, I'll also be in the delivery room. As the family matriarch, it's my place to welcome my grandchild. That's not happening, I said firmly. Patricia's smug smile sent a chill down my spine. We'll see about that, she said. Mike agrees with me, don't you, dear? Mike stirred his coffee, avoiding my gaze. Mom has experience with these things. Honey, maybe we should consider it. Emma nodded along, completely transformed from the supportive friend she once was. Mother knows best, Pamela. You're new to all this. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs, the constant undermining, the sly comments about my quaint upbringing, the reminders that Patricia came from old money while I was just a middle-class girl. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened at Tom's wedding. The morning of the wedding was a disaster. Patricia showed up at my house at 7 a.m., criticizing everything. That lipstick is far too bold for a daytime wedding. Use this instead, she said, handing me an expensive nude shade. And you're not wearing those shoes, are you? They're so department store. Mike rolled his eyes but stayed silent. By the time we arrived at the country club, I was already exhausted. Pamela, you look ready to pop. Maria, Sophia's best friend, hugged me. She knew about my high-risk pregnancy. Are you sure you should be here? Not like I had a choice, I muttered, gesturing toward Patricia, who was busy bossing around photographers. During the ceremony, the first contraction hit. I gripped the pew, trying to breathe through it. Maria noticed. Maybe we should get you out of here. No, I'm fine, I whispered. Just Braxton Hicks. At the reception, the contractions grew stronger. Patricia noticed me grimacing and swept over, her tone deceptively sweet. Darling, you look dreadful. Let's get you somewhere quiet. We can't have you making a scene. I should probably go home, I began, but she was already steering me toward the stairs. There's a lovely guest room upstairs. You can rest, and I'll check on you later. The room was gorgeous, with antique furniture and heavy curtains. Patricia helped me to the bed, then casually slipped my phone from my purse. I'll hold on to this so you won't be disturbed, she said with a smile. Wait, I started, but she was already gone. The door clicked. Locked. Patricia. I called, struggling to sit up. Her voice came through the door, calm and composed. It's for your own good, dear. We can't have you wandering around and drawing attention away from the bride. Just rest quietly, and I'll come get you. This wasn't funny anymore. The contractions were coming stronger now, and panic was rising fast. I rattled the locked door again, desperation creeping into my voice. Patricia, this isn't Braxton Hicks. I'm in labor. Oh, don't be dramatic. Her voice came dismissively from the other side. I had Braxton Hicks with all 3 of my children. Just rest. You'll be fine. My heart pounded as I scanned the room, spotting a phone on the bedside table. I grabbed it, but my hopes were dashed. It was dead. Please, I begged, my voice trembling, just let me call Mike. There was no response. The contractions were getting closer, and I moved to the window, but we were on the 3rd floor. Below, the laughter and music of the reception mocked my growing terror. Downstairs, Maria was starting to worry. She asked around, has anyone seen Pamela? She's just resting upstairs. Patricia said smoothly, sipping her champagne. First-time mothers can be so dramatic. She asked not to be disturbed. But Maria wasn't buying it. She turned to Mike. I've looked everywhere. I can't find her. She's probably in the bathroom, Mike replied, barely glancing up. Upstairs, I was on the floor, trying to breathe through another contraction when I heard Maria's voice in the hallway. Summoning all my strength, I cried out, my voice trembling. I'm locked in. Please help me. Oh my God, Pamela. Maria's footsteps hurried closer. Where are you? In here. The door's locked. I managed before another contraction hit, making me cry out in pain. Hold on. James, get up here now. Moments later, James's voice joined hers. What's going on? She's locked in. She's in labor. Stand back from the door, James ordered. I scooted away just as he rammed his shoulder against the old wooden door. It held for 2 tries, but on the 3rd, it splintered open. Maria rushed to my side. How far apart are the contractions? Maybe 4 minutes, I gasped. I don't know anymore. Patricia took my phone. I couldn't time them. James was already dialing for an ambulance when Patricia appeared in the doorway, her face twisted with outrage. What on earth are you doing? That door is an antique. What am I doing? I screamed through another contraction. You locked me in here. Patricia's voice was ice cold. Don't be ridiculous. I was helping you rest. You're clearly hysterical. Mike appeared behind her, looking confused. What's going on? Your mother locked your wife in here while she's in active labor, Maria snapped. She took her phone and disconnected the room phone. Mike hesitated, his brow furrowing. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. Mom was just trying to help. Help? James spun around, his voice sharp. This is false imprisonment of a woman in labor. Do you understand how serious this is? Patricia's face turned red. Now see here. I was simply trying to prevent her from making a scene. She's always been so attention-seeking, trying to overshadow family events with her common behavior. Another contraction hit, and I cried out, clutching Maria's hand. She's faking it, Patricia declared, her tone dripping with contempt. She's just jealous of Tom and Sophia's special day. Maria exploded. Her water just broke, Patricia. You're insane. Moments later, paramedics pushed through the growing crowd of wedding guests. As they loaded me onto the stretcher, Patricia was still protesting. This is absolutely ridiculous. She's ruining everything, just like I knew she would. The next few hours were a blur of pain and chaos. But at 9:47 p.m., my daughter, Luna, arrived, perfect and healthy. When I woke in the hospital later, Maria was dozing in a chair beside me and Luna was peacefully asleep in her bassinet. "Where's Mike?" I asked groggily. Maria's expression darkened. "He's in the waiting room, with Patricia." Of course he was. The door opened and Mike walked in, Patricia right behind him, both still in their wedding clothes. "Honey," Mike began, "there's been a huge misunderstanding. Mom was just trying to help. You know how overwhelming these society events can be for someone not used to them." "Not used to them?" I stared at him, disbelief twisting in my chest. "I could have lost our baby because of her." "That's hysterical thinking," Patricia cut in, her voice cold and dismissive. "I raised 3 children. I know what real labor looks like. You were fine." Maria stood up, blocking Patricia's path to my bed. "I think you both need to leave. Now." "This is a family matter," Patricia began. But Maria cut her off. "Family doesn't lock family in rooms and endanger their lives. Get out before I call security." As they left, I looked down at my sleeping daughter and made a decision. This would be the last time Patricia, or Mike, would ever have the chance to hurt us. Maria's guest room became our sanctuary during those first chaotic weeks. Between night feedings and divorce paperwork, I barely had time to process everything. James was a godsend, handling the legal details while I focused on Luna. "We're filing for both divorce and a restraining order," James explained one morning over coffee. "What happened at the wedding wasn't just cruel, it was criminal." Then came the bombshell. One day, Emma appeared at Maria's door, her hands trembling as she handed James a USB drive. "I can't keep quiet anymore," she said, her voice cracking. "Mom's been horrible for years, but this is too far. It's security footage from the wedding." On a screen, Patricia was seen locking the door, then turning to a friend with a smug smile. "Now she can't make a scene." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so sorry, Pamela. I should have stopped her sooner." The story spread like wildfire. Wedding guests had already been sharing photos and videos of the aftermath. Me being wheeled out on a stretcher, Patricia ranting about attention-seeking behavior. But when the security footage leaked, it was over for her. "Did you see?" Patricia Morrison locked her pregnant daughter-in-law in a room during active labor. The headlines were everywhere. One by one, her society friends abandoned her. Maria told me later that Patricia was removed from her cherished charity board. "We cannot have someone who would endanger a mother and child representing our organization," they announced publicly. Mike didn't fare much better. His real estate clients fled his business in droves. A former colleague of mine told me he even showed up drunk to a house showing. The horrified clients left immediately. "They all know about what happened at the wedding," my colleague said. Meanwhile, I focused on healing and rebuilding. Surprisingly, new clients began seeking me out. "We want someone with integrity," they'd say. "Someone who stood up to that awful woman." 3 years flew by, and I opened my own firm, Morrison Real Estate, reclaiming the name on my terms. Maria became Luna's godmother, and James continued to handle all our legal work. My boutique agency specializes in helping people find not just houses, but real homes. Places where they'll feel safe and happy. Today was Luna's 3rd birthday party. My backyard was alive with laughter, children running and playing, supportive friends mingling, and even a few of Patricia's former social circle who had chosen me over her. Mike showed up briefly, awkwardly handing Luna a wrapped present. "Happy birthday," he mumbled, before leaving as quickly as he came. The disapproving looks from my friends probably made it clear he wasn't welcome. "More juice, please," Luna called out, her curls bouncing as she ran by with her friends. Tom and Sophia approached, carrying a beautifully wrapped gift. "We're moving to London," Tom announced as he hugged me tight. Sophia beamed, her hands resting on her growing belly. "We just want to raise our baby without any of that negative energy." "We'll always stay in touch," Tom promised. "Your family, the good kind." Maria nudged me as they left. "Don't look now, but guess who's parked across the street?" I glanced out the window and caught sight of Patricia's Bentley. She was sitting there alone, watching the party she wasn't invited to. A few years ago, the sight of her would have made my blood boil. Now, all I felt was pity. "Should we call someone?" Maria asked, raising an eyebrow. "No need," I said, turning back to the party. "She's punishing herself more than we ever could." I knelt beside Luna as she leaned over her cake. Make a wish, baby, I whispered. As the candles flickered out, I realized I didn't need to make wishes anymore. Everything I needed was already here. What would you do if you were Tom and Sophia? Would you stay close to toxic family members during your pregnancy, hoping they'd change or move away to protect your unborn child like they did? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you've ever dealt with controlling in-laws or toxic family dynamics, I'd love to hear your story. Remember, sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming toxic relationships and finding strength in unexpected places. Your support helps me share stories that matter. Hi, I'm Christina. Let me tell you about the family I'm married into, the Andersons. Old money, a sprawling mansion in Connecticut, and more traditions than you can count. I work as a nurse at Hartford Hospital, and that's where I met their golden boy, Mark. He was in his residency when we clicked. Charming, sweet, and refreshingly different from his stuffy family. At least that's what I thought. Everything changed after the wedding. His mother, Eleanor, was the perfect mix of Cruella de Vil and Martha Stewart. She began showing her true colors immediately. Christina, dear, Anderson women don't work after marriage, she'd say, her tone dripping with condescension. Christina, honey, it's embarrassing to discuss hospital stories at dinner. My father-in-law, Richard, was no better. He'd sit in his study, nodding along in silence, puffing on one of his overpriced cigars. The only decent one was Claire, Mark's younger sister. She'd roll her eyes during Eleanor's lectures and shoot me sympathetic glances. One day, Claire whispered to me, they did the same thing to Mark's college girlfriend. Drove her out within months. But I wasn't going anywhere. I loved Mark, and he loved me, even if he had the infuriating habit of saying, that's just how they are, whenever I pointed out his parents' appalling behavior. Then the pain started. At first it was small, just faint twinges in my lower abdomen. Being a nurse, I knew something was wrong. But every time I brought up seeing a doctor, Eleanor would cut me off. Andersons handle things privately. We have our own family physician, she'd insist, referring to their ancient doctor who hadn't practiced in decades. When the pain hit hard, it nearly brought me to my knees. One evening during one of Eleanor's lavish parties, Claire noticed me gripping the counter. You look pale, she said, worried. I'm fine, I managed, but my legs were trembling. Mark stood across the room, deep in conversation with his father about hospital administration. Eleanor glided over, her pearls gleaming like a weapon. Christina, compose yourself. The Whitmans just arrived, she hissed. That's when everything went black. The last thing I heard was Claire shouting my name and Eleanor whispering sharply, not in front of the guests. When I came to, I was in bed. The room spun as I tried to sit up. We need to call an ambulance, I rasped. Don't be dramatic, Eleanor's icy voice cut through. Dr. Peterson will be here in the morning. He's handled all our medical situations for 30 years. Mark, my doctor husband, sat beside me, squeezing my hand weakly. Mother's right, he said. He treated my appendicitis when I was 12. I stared at him, disbelief battling with the pain that tore through my body. My husband, a man sworn to save lives, was siding with them. The betrayal was worse than the agony. At least let me go to the hospital myself, I pleaded, fumbling for my phone. Eleanor snatched it away with surprising speed. No hospitals, no outsiders. Family matters stay within these walls. Claire helped me to my room as the sounds of classical music and laughter drifted up from below. Once we were alone, she spilled everything. The Andersons had a sordid history of covering up medical emergencies to avoid scandal. Grandmother died because they waited too long. Cousin Sarah lost a kidney. Even my asthma was treated with herbal tea, she confessed, her voice trembling. They're obsessed with appearances. She gestured to her father's study. There's a whole room of medical records in there, every covered-up crisis, every hushed diagnosis. Suddenly, the pain spiked so sharply that I screamed. Mark burst in, his face torn. Mother says Dr. Peterson will come first thing in the morning. She'll be dead by morning. Claire exploded. Just like Grandma. As they argued, I discreetly reached for Claire's phone, my vision blurring. But I managed to dial 911. As the operator answered, I heard Eleanor's heels clicking ominously down the hallway. Help, I whispered into the phone. Hartford Hospital nurse. medical emergency, Anderson estate. The chaos that followed felt surreal. My colleagues at Hartford Hospital could barely believe their eyes when I was wheeled into the emergency room. Dr. Sarah Chen, my best friend from the cardiac unit, immediately took charge. Ruptured appendix with severe peritonitis. We need her in surgery now, she barked. Mark stood frozen in the waiting room as the perfect Anderson family image crumbled around him. My coworkers, having seen too many cases of medical neglect, weren't about to stay quiet. Dr. Chen confronted Mark directly, her voice echoing across the ER. She could have died. As a doctor, you should know better. 4 hours of documented refusal to seek medical care, and now your wife has sepsis because someone decided appearances mattered more than her life. When I woke up 2 days later, Claire was sitting vigil by my bedside, clutching a thick manila folder. Mark was slumped in a corner chair, looking like he aged a decade overnight. I broke into Daddy's study, Claire announced, her eyes blazing. Every family medical incident for the past 40 years, Grammy's heart attack, Sarah's kidney failure, even your appendicitis, Mark. Everything they tried to hide. Mark finally stirred. I never knew. I remember being sick, but Mother always said it wasn't that serious. They gaslighted you your entire life, Claire snapped. Made you think their way was normal. Well, guess what? Christina's medical team is building a case. Criminal negligence, medical endangerment, they've got it all documented. That's when Hurricane Eleanor burst into the room, Richard trailing behind her. How dare you air our private matters, she hissed. I've already spoken to the hospital board about your staff's unprofessional behavior. Shut up, Mother. Mark's voice was quiet but firm. The room froze. He'd never spoken to her like that before. I've read the files, seen the evidence. You nearly killed Christina, just like you almost killed me, just like you killed Grammy. It stops now. Eleanor's face turned purple with fury. Everything I did was to protect this family's reputation, you ungrateful. Protect? I interrupted, sitting up despite the pain. Anger gave me strength. You left Sarah with one kidney. You watched your mother die rather than call an ambulance. You made your own son think suffering was normal. Some protection. Claire smiled grimly. The board already has copies of everything. Turns out, they're not big fans of wealthy families covering up medical emergencies, especially when one of their nurses was nearly killed. Richard stepped forward, likely preparing some patriarchal defense, but Mark cut him off. Get out. All your precious society friends will know exactly what kind of family the Andersons really are. Every single detail. Eleanor backed toward the door, sputtering, while Mark took my hand. I'm so sorry, he whispered, but they'll never hurt anyone again. Claire smirked. And we're just getting started. The medical board hearing became the scandal of Hartford's elite social circle. Eleanor and Richard sat stiffly in their designer suits as doctor after doctor testified about the Andersons' pattern of medical neglect. Their precious reputation unraveled thread by thread. Dr. Chen didn't hold back. Not only did they deny care to their daughter-in-law, she said, but we've uncovered 17 separate incidents of medical emergencies hidden or improperly treated, 1 resulting in death, 3 in permanent disability. The Anderson family lawyer looked like he was having an aneurysm. He might as well have been trying to defend the indefensible. Claire's documentation was airtight, and my medical colleagues refused to mince words. Mark testified last. I was conditioned from childhood to accept this as normal. My medical training was constantly at war with their family traditions. But watching them nearly kill my wife, that opened my eyes to decades of abuse. Eleanor's perfectly composed mask finally cracked. We were protecting you, all of you. Protecting us? I shot back, standing despite the still healing incision. It cost Sarah her kidney, cost your mother her life, and almost cost me mine. And for what? So you could keep hosting your charity galas? The board's decision was unanimous. Eleanor and Richard were charged with criminal negligence and medical endangerment. Their social empire crumbled as former friends scrambled to distance themselves. The mysterious illnesses and deaths in the Anderson family were no longer a mystery, but I wasn't done. During my recovery, I started a support group for survivors of medical neglect and family abuse. You'd be shocked how many wealthy families cling to similar traditions. Claire became our star advocate, using her insider knowledge to help others break free. Mark sold his share of the family practice and opened a clinic in an underserved community. No one gets turned away, he promised. No one's emergency gets ignored. Last week, I recently spoke at a medical conference about recognizing signs of familial medical neglect. Claire tells me that Richard now spends his days alone in that massive house, all his so-called friends gone, surrounded only by the very medical records that exposed his empire. Karma has a sense of irony, doesn't it? As for me, I'm still a nurse, but now I specialize in helping abuse survivors navigate the healthcare system. Every time I help someone escape a situation like mine, I think about that night I collapsed on their pristine Persian rug. Sometimes the best revenge isn't retribution, it's ensuring no one else suffers the same fate. That concludes Christina's shocking story about the dark underbelly of the prestigious Anderson family. But let's take a moment to reflect. Imagine being in a life or death situation like Christina's, where your spouse, a medical professional sworn to save lives, chose family reputation over your survival. What would be your breaking point? Could you rebuild trust as Christina did when Mark finally stood up to his parents? Or would his initial inaction, his compliance with Eleanor's cruelty, be an unforgivable betrayal? Consider the layers here. Mark watched Christina suffer for hours while following his mother's orders, knowing full well the potential consequences. He had been conditioned since childhood to prioritize family image over health and safety. Yet he eventually found his courage, broke free from his parents, and dedicated his life to making amends through his new clinic. So, which is worse? The in-laws' active cruelty or Mark's passive compliance? And at what point does childhood conditioning stop being an excuse for harmful adult behavior? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Would you have called 911 sooner than Christina did? Would you have pressed charges against the in-laws? What would it take for you to forgive a spouse who initially chose their toxic family over your life? If this story resonated with you, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helps these important stories reach others who might need to hear them. Share your thoughts below, and let's have a real conversation about family loyalty, survival, and the courage to break toxic cycles. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story that might make you question everything you thought you knew about family dynamics. Together, we're building a community that supports survivors and holds toxic behavior accountable. Let's keep the conversation going.